So one of the aims of coming up with these categories and also the gradation of IOHK efforts from the lowest to the highest, from the simplest to the most difficult, is to indicate to our academic staff that IOHK efforts are not to be accomplished in one go, because we know that many of our academic staffs who are fresh PhDs, fresh graduates of PhD programs, most of them are not really well versed with this Islamization agenda, and most of them coming from the non-revealed knowledge sciences did not have a strong background in Islamic knowledge or religious knowledge. But we want them to feel, to not feel discouraged. The fresh graduates may start with the low necessity category first, and then gradually proceed to higher high necessity, and then higher necessity, and later on, maybe when they become more well established and more mature and more confident, maybe with a group of scholars, come out with new knowledge, new construction of knowledge, which is the highest necessity category. So everybody can find a place in this broad spectrum of what we call categories, or is IOHK efforts. From there, I would go to now to the subject of integration and relevantization. First, the issue of integration. If by integration we mean the combination of divine revelation with human reason, or IOHK with IOS, or Islamization of the self, or Islamic revealed knowledge with acquired human knowledge, or ulum naqliyah with ulum aqliyah within an Islamic university curriculum, then this is not an issue. This is something that is natural, and we have been doing this kind of integration. But integration could become an issue if it is not grounded upon the worldview of Islam, or the critical dimension of Islamic worldview is marginalized, then the idea of integration can be problematic. We're raising this issue because in the West, some of the Muslim intellectuals are now proposing that the word Islamization of knowledge should not be used in the Western, it should not be used, and they only want to use the word integration. Now, we understand the reason for this anxiety of our Muslim brothers and sisters in the West, because the word Islam itself is an issue. What more Islamization, because the word Islamization is seen as an agenda to convert others to Islam, or to impose Islamic worldview upon others. And so they would like to use in the discourse only the word integration. Now, while we accept the rationale for this new move, we want to caution our brothers and sisters in the West that integration does not mean that Western values and Islamic values or Western values could just be accommodated without any attempt to be critical. Then what might happen would be, instead of having preserving your Islamic identity, what we worried is that you might have a Western or Westernized Islamic identity because the critical element is missing. So yes, you can integrate all the aspects of Western culture which are not contradictory to Islamic values, but at the same time, you have to be also very cautious of those aspects which may undermine the Islamic ethical values and also the worldview. So we mentioned here, we can understand if this proposal is being put forward in the current Western cultural and political context. It is unwise to perpetuate the articulation of the discourse of Islamization of human knowledge in the US, the UK, or Europe, which regard the rise of Islam, the increasing number of Muslims in the West, and the intellectual agenda of IOHK, which IT had started since the 80s, as completely unacceptable. So to the West, all these are unacceptable. Islamization has become a taboo in the West, and Muslim scholars and institutions would do well not to speak the language of Islamization in the public. We agree. So they have to craft new Islamic concepts or discourses or agenda which are acceptable or intellectually palatable to the non-Muslim majority population in the West without compromising Islamic principles. Therefore, we can agree to the proposal coming from Muslims in the West that the term Islamization of knowledge be discontinued. Instead, only the term integration is to be used for the discourse on Muslim intellectual and educational reforms in Western contexts. However, we feel that such a proposal is not proper in the context of Malaysia or in Muslim majority countries such as Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Indonesia, Pakistan, Nigeria, and many other countries, because Muslim majority countries need to be transformed on the basis of the Islamic paradigms and worldview. And so what we are saying is it's okay not to use the word Islamization of knowledge or Islamization in the West, but we do not have to be defensive about it in the Muslim majority countries. In Malaysia, for instance, we should not feel discouraged to use the word Islamization because people may misunderstand it. But IIUM is a proof that the term Islamization and Islamic University is not a liability. In fact, it is an asset to the country and also to a plural society. So we would like to maintain the word Islamization of Muslim countries, Islamization of Islamic Islamization of human knowledge in the Muslim majority countries. In the case of Malaysia and Indonesia, we can explain to the non-Muslims, and in fact, this is what we have been doing, that the agenda has to do with Muslims trying to live by the Islamic way of life, which in the context of Malaysia and Indonesia does not impinge upon the rights of non-Muslim communities or fellow citizens of a democratic country. As far as IOHK or IOS are concerned, the way IIUM, the way our university has articulated and developed the discourse over the last 3 decades should make the non-Muslim skeptics realize that there is no justification for their fears about Islamization of human knowledge or Islamization of the self. If we in Malaysia or Indonesia decide to abandon the discourse of Islamization in favor of using the discourse of integration only, then we believe we will be doing injustice to the Quranic injunction of al-amru bil ma'ruf wa nahyu anil munkar. In al-amru bil ma'ruf wa nahyu anil munkar, if you look at many Muslim countries, we find that the nahyu anil munkar is somewhat missing or less emphasized as compared to al-amru bil ma'ruf. So the nahyu anil munkar is necessary in Muslim countries, even in the West, but since we cannot speak openly in the West, then that aspect is not pursued. And that is why I think the discourse on implementing the Sharia laws in the West is not really the sound way of developing Islamic religion in the Western context. So abandoning the discourse of Islamization in the Muslim majority countries, we feel could lead to the unwarranted attitude of tolerating the existence of prohibited, reprehensible and blameworthy elements in Muslim thought, education, culture and politics. And now with the trend of liberal Islam in Indonesia and also partly in Malaysia, we need to emphasize the fact that there is this nahyu anil munkar in Islam, that there are munkar things which are coming from outside or from inside. For instance, the LGBT issue, and several other issues, human rights and so on. There are within those agenda some un-Islamic elements, and we need to identify and remove those un-Islamic elements. We can take the elements which are not reprehensible from the Islamic point of view. Now I come to the issue of relevantization. What do we mean by relevantization? As we have explained, the other disciplines in the university, in the social sciences, humanities, economics, and law, and natural sciences, and even in medicine, the term Islamization of human knowledge is used. What about the disciplines of revealed knowledge, fiqh and usul fiqh, Quran and Sunnah, usuluddin and comparative religion in the kulliyah of Abdul Hamid Abu Sulaiman kulliyah of revealed knowledge and human sciences. So we say that the proper terminology to be used is not Islamization of human knowledge, but relevantization. Why? First, because these disciplines are based on the epistemology of Islam, whereas the other sciences were based not on the Islamic epistemology. Okay, so epistemologically and ontologically, the revealed knowledge disciplines are acceptable. What is the problem with revealed knowledge is how religious values can be made relevant as as solutions to contemporary problems, and not as objects of museum of the past. So we prefer the term relevantization as a convenient single word which represents the process of sound development, reform, renewal, and improvement of the Islamic revealed knowledge disciplines. We maintain that the term Islamization is not appropriate for IRK revealed knowledge disciplines because those disciplines, known variously as ulum naqliya, ulum shar'iyya, ulum diniyya, were originally derived and grounded on the belief system, theology, epistemology, and normative values of Islam themselves. They are not of the same category as the modern social sciences, humanities, natural sciences, applied sciences, which developed in modern Western civilization and are grounded in secular epistemologies and worldviews. In other words, the IRK disciplines are already Islamic by virtue of being based on and derived from the worldview, theology, epistemology, aqidah, sharia, and akhlaq of Islam. That does not mean that they are not required to undergo the process of change, reform, or revision in terms of substantive content, approaches, methodologies, applications, pedagogy, research, publication, consultancy, public service, or social work. As IRK courses are concerned with the correct understanding, practice, and actualization of the Deen al-Islam in the context of human, in context of culture, society, and civilization, they have to be subjected to regular change, taghyir, reform and improvement, islah, renewal, revitalization, restoration, reconstruction, tajdeed, revival, regeneration, revivification, ihya, and exercise of independent legal reasoning in facing new issues not covered by the revealed text or ijtihad, to remain relevant and applicable to the changing times and cultural context, as well as to be able to bring about the necessary changes in Muslim and human societies. All right, and we say that the efforts of integration or synthesis of useful and beneficial ideas, methods of research, analysis, perspectives or theories from the natural sciences, applied sciences, social sciences, human sciences, insofar as they are not contrary to the aqidah, sharia, and akhlaq of Islam, may also be undertaken by the 5 departments of Islamic revealed knowledge. What I'm suggesting is that the departments of Usuluddin and comparative religion, fiqh and usul fiqh, Al-Quran and Sunnah, general studies, and Arabic language and literature should not only think of integration among them, they should also be thinking of integrating and synthesizing with disciplines from medical sciences, from engineering, from architecture, economics, and so on. Therefore, the work of reconstruction or construction of new knowledge or disciplines or producing new inventions or doing high quality or excellent research, publication and so on are expected of IIUM staff in IRK disciplines. All right, so IRK academic staff are required to also be involved in the reconstruction of new knowledge, and hopefully many of them will be able to contribute to the highest necessity category, inshallah. Okay, now in my conclusion, I would like to mention, to say as follows: IOHK is undoubtedly a continuous process of what Dr. Abdul Hamid Abu Sulaiman al-Marhoom said, moving towards a moving target. All right. In other words, we should be open-ended. This Islamization of human knowledge process welcomes new development, and there's no one person that can do justice to this, and there's no one definition that can fit all the meanings into it, because societies change, time evolves. We have to allow for that evolution, but the principles of Islamization of human knowledge remains the same. We have so the door of ijtihad has to be opened, has to continue to be open, and must remain open. We have explained that IOHK is not a rigid, one-dimensional paradigm. It is inclusive of several approaches, beginning with the positive approaches, the comparative, the integrative, the harmonizing, the synthesizing, the naturalizing, the adaptation, the critical appreciation. And then the negative approaches are critique, critical rational refutation, complete reorientation, deconstruction, and then the most required is reconstruction and new construction. We should reiterate that IOHK is inclusive of integration and harmonization, and has nothing to do with attempts to convert others to Islam or having political agenda. It is, after all, the Muslim believer's quest for knowledge, morality and spirituality in accordance with the worldview of the Quran as commanded by the Creator, while appreciating and adopting whatever that is good, khair, ma'roof, tayyib, useful, nafi', salih, beneficial, maslahah, or acceptable, halal, from other people's knowledge, skills, cultures, and civilizations. We would like to suggest at the end the approach proposed by Sheikh Taha Jabir Al-Alwani Al-Marhoom when he said that the way forward for IOHK is to require the integrating of the two readings, what he called al-jam'u bayn al-qira'atayn, that is the reading of the signs of Allah in the universe, qira'at ayatullah al-kawniyah, with the reading of the ayat of Allah in the Quran. So these two books must be read together because they complement each other, and this is the way that forward for IOHK, and we hope that with IOHK we can, the Muslim world first can solve its own problems, and then after that it can also contribute to the development to the providing solutions to the global crisis that beset the world today. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.